Hey there, my name's TJ Lawton. I've been a Ableton producer now for about 8 years, and here I want to show you my template, which I've been using for about 4 years, which has helped me sign to countless labels and really helped me with workflow. And it helps me keep my sessions more fun, keeps me in flow state longer, and eliminates decision fatigue. Redesigned it now with all stock plugins, so this will work for any Ableton user. However, you can put in your own third-party plugins if you wish. It works for Ableton 10, 11, standard, or suite. And the reasons why I made this template and the reason why I think it might be good for you is because it's designed to eliminate decision fatigue and keep you in a flow state. So how this works is by using this template, you'll no longer have to use the library on the left, for example, apart from the one time when you set it up to put your own sounds and samples in. But after that, all the admin work's taken care of you, all the processing chains are taken care of. So you can just get straight to it, make music you like, and don't worry about the processing. And it might help you learn as well, because you can look at all the racks I've built, which we'll go over in a bit, and you can sort of pick them apart and be like, oh, that's really interesting how we've made that. So let's get into it then. So the first channel we have here is a sidechain channel, and sidechaining, will duck at any sound towards that signal. So what we have here is just an operator sending it a 4/4 beep, and you can change the decay here to match the tempo of your song. And a quick tip you could have is if you take 60,000 and divide it by the BPM of your song, you'll get the duration of 1 beat, which then you can set that to the decay time if you want it to be 1 beat long of sidechain. But this channel is in audible send-only mode. And how this works later is I'll show you. I've got these sidechain compressors on certain channels, and it will activate when you use those. So let's get into the first group. So the first group here we have drums, and it comes with a processing chain that's turned off. So you turn it on, you start processing everything. It's got a drum bus for your saturation. It's got an EQ8 for your cuts. It's got your compressor to tighten everything, a glue compressor to really bring it all together, do some parallel compression, and then a limiter. And there's also two transition effects racks at the end here. So they got one that cuts the lows, one that cuts the highs, one that does volume, and one that does like stereo cut. These are really useful for creating transitions and builds. Like maybe you want to do a section where all the drums come down in volume and cut the highs off and create more of a somber, more relaxed, mellow breakdown. And obviously you can take the lows out as well if you want to do more of a lift in a build to get ready for a drop. And then another rack here I've got in, which is a fade in and fade out rack, and that sort of creates like these really nice smooth reverby tails to sort of like smoothly cut everything away and smoothly bring everything in. And I'll demo this in a bit. So as we come down the channels now, we can see the first channel of the kick, and I have one of my 128 kicks here that comes with the template. So how this works is if I play it, you can hear there's a kick, but as I move the knob, it plays a different kick drum. There's 128 kick drums loaded in here, all from different genres and different styles, so you can really find something unique. However, if you go through 128 and you don't like any of them, you can just drag your own in here and off you go. So once you do find a kick you like, you can change the pitch of it. You can add saturation and drive, change the volume, and then you've got ADSR, so you can smooth the transient out, you can take down the decay and sustain and make it more clicky. You can also turn mono on and off here, because some of the kicks in here have a little bit of stereo on them, which is sometimes nice, sometimes you don't want it. And then we have a mixing rack. So how the mixing rack works is this is just like very basic mixing parameters to get you going, like a low cut, and then you can obviously got one for detecting mud, so you can take out some of the muddy of your sounds. Then you've got the Q for it as well, so you can change the narrowness of the thing. You can do this with the visual. You've got the visual aspect there, so you can see what you're doing. And then finally, there's a high cut there. And then there aren't any macros for the compressor because, well, they're all here anyway. So you can just bang it in straight away, start compressing. And then we have a limiter. So if you want to turn it up and really smash it into a limiter, make it nice and packed, you can do that too. And as we move down the racks, you can see the same thing here. With the other drum sounds, I've included like the 128 kicks for free with this template, but however all the other sounds will just have an empty simpler, so you have to drag in your own tom drums. But all the macros are set up, so you can change the pitch, the detune, the panning, the gain, and the ADSR of the sound, making it very easy to drag your own sample in and just adjust it. So I'll show you right now. If I go find a random tom drum from my library, play it at C3, that's what it sounds like, and I can quickly change the pitch of it. And of course I could automate all these knobs as well if I wanted to create like weird fills and risers and stuff. I've got the pannings left and right, change the gain as well. And the reason why I have it here and not using it on the channel is this is more for processing and that's more for mixing. And this way is I can change the gain and the panning before it goes into processing, which is a bit of a subtle tip. If you don't know this, you should be gain matching before you go into certain saturations and stuff like that in compressors, because you get a different sound out of it. And then once you've got the sound you want, obviously you can use the channels mixing and panning to sort of bring it all together in comparison to the other sounds in the track. So yeah, there's the 8 macros there that allow you to quickly adjust the sound. And then if we go into controls as well, I've also got an LFO, and this is on every single drum sound. And it just adds some very random fluctuations into it. You can't really hear any difference, but what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that not every single hit is exactly the same. It's going to be slightly different. It's going to be essentially more analog. It's going to emulate more analog sort of sounds. If I put the pitch up really high, you'll hear what I mean. It's just all over the place. If I put it down to like 2, can't really hear it, but it is slightly different every time, and this just makes more humanization and just makes your ears more pleasing to your ears and stuff. So then the first rack we've got here is this color rack, and what this does is it allows you to add different types of saturation to your sounds, so you can blend it into your track, make it more interesting. And again, you can use these knobs just for static taste, or you could actually do it for automation. So let me show you what I mean real quick. That adds some sort of like grainy dust to the top end. That can be really good for like snares if you just wanted to have more presence in the highs, and it just sort of like tickles your eardrums a bit. You got drive here, which is going to be like a saturation, like a standard saturator. Makes it really like distorted. We've got add noise, which is going to add some white noise to it. And then finally we've got width, which is just going to widen it. Great for like hi-hats and stuff like that. And again, this is going to be on every single drum rack, every single drum channel, so you can quickly process it the way you want. And then again, we've got the mixing rack here, which is, you know, going to have the low cuts, the high cuts and stuff like that, same as everything else. But at the end, it's going to have a sidechain compressor. Now the kick doesn't have a sidechain compressor on it, obviously, because you don't want to sidechain the kick to the kick. But then these will all be set up to the sidechain channel, and all you have to do is turn this and it'll turn it on. And then that will be now being pumped to the sidechain. And then you have a dry wet amount here, so you can control how heavy the pump will be. And the pump will depend on what you set this decay macro to. That's very flexible, very easy to get things going. And then as we go down each of the channels, basically it's the same thing. It's just drag and drop a sample in. It's got the same sort of skeleton processing ready to go. You can adjust it all very easily. And then I've got some extra channels at the bottom here. So, you know, if you have a need for more than the channels that are there, you can duplicate them and make more, and they'll all be routed into the drum group where you can process it. And then before we leave the drums, I just want to show you this drum builder I've got here. So if we grab a snare, and put this in, for example, how this works is if you just hold down any note, and I'll hold down C3 here, I can bring this up and it'll create a snare build, and of course then I can change the pitch, change the speed, and I got a filter as well. So with this rack you can very quickly and easily create snare builds for your tracks. Just drag in your own snare and boom, off you go. And you've got all the parameters here to adjust it, so if you want it to be tighter or change the pitch of it, you can. And then again I have the processing rack. So that's all the drums, so we'll just tick that one off. Next we'll go into the bass. The bass group has only 2 channels in it. It has a bass and a sub. And again, if you want to have lots of layers, for example, you can just duplicate the bass channel like this, for example. And there's no processing on these basses. What I expect you to do is like drag on your favorite synthesizer or your favorite sample, whether that be like Serum or Diva or Operator, Wavetable, whatever, and then resave it. Because let's say you make dubstep and you have a nice wob sound that you made in Serum, you can just drag it on here and then you go, cool, there's my wob, it's all good to go. And then you would use this group channel for the processing. So the processing rack here, so all you do is turn it on, and you have like the drive, you can have saturation, you can remove mud, so you can remove that pesky sort of just above the sub area where it makes it very boomy. You've got the compressor, you've got some chorus, so you can add some width to it, sounds really nice. And then you have also the cut width. This is like the low cut for the stereo. So let's say you add loads of width to your bass. You don't really want any stereo like 80 hertz and below, so you can just adjust it to taste. And then you've got the sidechain channel and the transition racks as from the drum ones. So something it got here is this sub analog Moog rack. So it's a sine wave recorded from an analog Moog, and you've got all these different parameters. Let's say what it sounds like. You might need to have your headphones plugged in or your speakers on to hear this. It's going to be very subby. And you have like so you have a filter, control how much of the high end comes through. Gain, so you can turn it up and down. Then I have add dust, so you can hear that just adds like a very interesting top end to it. And I have noise. It's a bit like weird, sort of like to it. And of course, we've got the ADSR, and the ADSR is just going to help you shape it. Maybe you want something more plucky. Cool, and that again comes with the rack as a free bonus. That's just going to ensure that you have really nice sub, clean sub, analog clean sub. So then the next thing we go down is you go into the synths, and then you have a synth bus processing. There's not a lot going on here because it's hard to really make a rack that would fit every single genre. Every genre is going to have different processing for their synths, depending if you want to make it more lo-fi or if you want to have something more aggressive and high quality and hi-fi. It's hard to make one rack that does all that. However, there are some basic parameters here, such as like an EQ and a glue compressor and a low cut. And then of course, then same with the bass channel, there's a side chain ready to go, and also 2 transition racks, which we'll demo in a bit. Next up is the vocals. So the vocals again has a processing rack ready to go, sidechain transition racks, and then just some audio channels ready to go. So if you're a singer or you do vocal chops, you can use these channels here to put them in and chop them up and stuff like that. And if you need more, obviously you just duplicate it, and then you've got extra channels. And then the next one we have is this audio group, and again works similar to the vocal one, but this is more aimed towards live instruments. So you change the inputs here to in, and then you would record your keys or your guitar or whatever else you're using for live instruments. And if you have more than 1 or 2 live instruments, you can just come here, just duplicate it and rename it to 3, or don't rename it at all. It's up to you. And you can, and then you're good to go. So the last group we have here is the effects group, and this is for your fills and rises, your ear candy, your atmospheres and stuff like that. So it's got 3 empty channels here, which you can drag your own synths onto, or drag your own samples onto, and you can quickly just say, okay, here's my sweep or whatever. And then I've built some very basic white noise falls and rises to come with the rack. You don't have to use these, but these are just added bonuses. So let's have a listen to what the full one sounds like. As I turn the knob, it obviously becomes a full, so you can obviously have it really quick or really slow depending on what you need. And then the riser does the same thing, but it's a riser. Got some nice delay and reverb at the end. And then this atmosphere, again, it's just like you would add your own samples here, your own synths, and let's say you have Serum, you've made a nice atmosphere sound, you can just quickly put it in here and you're good to go. And then there's another free bonus at the very end. I've added this analog tape hiss recorded from, I'm not sure where I've recorded from, it's just like some machine hum from an analog studio that I've had for years. And it sounds like this. But it's put in really, really quiet. And what this does is just adds a bit of a noise floor to your track and a bit of analog warmth, makes it sound a bit more robust. I highly recommend that you do this for every song you do. So that's why it's there. So now I'm quickly going to pause this video and I'm going to build something very quickly, and then I'm going to show you some of the effects racks and some of the return channels. Okay, so welcome back. And so I've very quickly written a little drum loop. I've added some sub bass and a very basic synth. It's not my best work, so yeah. Please hold your judgments, but I'm just here to demo how this sounds. So right now it's going to sound very dry because the processing is completely turned off. There's nothing on. So let's have a quick listen to this 2-bar. So first of all, let's solo the drums to see how this processing works. The first thing we can do is turn this rack on, and we can start with the drum bus here. We can very quickly add some saturation, some punch. Cool, sounding a bit better already. Maybe let's take this EQ and cut some mud. Cool. And we can add some compression. And some glue. And we can turn the limiter up and really pump it. Cool, so that's how the processing unit would work, very quickly and easily get your drums pumping. But now let's look at these transition effects and see how these work. So as we turn it on, we have 4 parameters: cut lows, cut highs, cut gain, and cut stereo. I'm not going to set automation names because I'm going to assume you already know how to do that, so I'm just going to demo the knobs real quick. So that's how those knobs work. They're very basic parameters, but it saves you a lot of time by having them in a rack that you can just turn knobs and just boom, make transitions without having to drag in your own filters and set up all the macros and yourself. So it's all done for you. The next up is this more intricate thing that adds more reverb and stereo effects to really like wash things out. So let's listen to the fade in first. What you do is set this to 0 and it would fade in over time. So let's have a listen. There'd be nothing on 0 being inaudible. Pretty cool. Now listen to the fade out. And yeah, you can create some pretty cool, as a freeze at the end, so you can make some pretty cool builds into like dramatic stabilizers and then drop it back in. So now let's look at the return tracks. We have 7 return tracks. And let's open up the clap, for example, and solo this and go through them. The first thing we have is a short reverb. And let's say you don't quite like the tail of it, you can come into the return track and there's some macro set up for that as well. So you can change the EQ of it. Maybe there's some painful 2K. You can take that out, put some 4K, make it sound more hollow. You can change the decay time, make it longer, make it shorter. Maybe take some highs out, take some lows out of it. So you can shape your reverb as well very, very quickly to that, and then you just glue the whole track together with the same reverb. So let's listen now to what it sounds like with the second return channel, which is the long reverb. Exactly the same parameters, but it's set to be longer, that's all. Next we have stereo. So let's go to the hi-hat for this one. Maybe you think that hi-hat sounds a bit mono, maybe you want it to be wider. So on return channel C, we have an effects track here that very simply just adds some stereo using the Haas effect, and you can change the sort of delay of the stereo to add more taste and flavor. However, I would keep this at quite a low number. It would sound best there. So as you can hear there, it's just adding some very subtle whip to it. The hi-hat's already got quite a bit of whip, so it's very subtle, but yeah, that will help you push things to the sides and have more of a dynamic experience for the user. Next up, we have delay, which is just going to be a very simple delay. And again, it has some very basic parameters. You can do some EQing, and then you have the feedback and the delay time. Let's have a little listen. So you can adjust it to taste, find something you like. And of course you could automate this as well, make really trippy sounds. Like imagine you had a macro just moving this around. Endless possibilities. That's the whole benefit of this template, I think. It's just it allows you to very quickly come up with creative ideas without having to build them first. The next up is the 5th return channel, which is flange. Going to add a very tight springy delay to it, add more metallic texture. Sounds like this. Bit more techno, a bit more robotic. Very cool effect, I think. The next up we have is New York compression. This is more for mixing and just adding lots of beef to your sound. Let's see what it sounds like if I apply it to the whole drum bus. Yeah, so very quickly adding some nice beef to it actually. Really useful feature. And then the final return channel we have here is our saturation. And this is, again, I do this on group processing, although you can do it on individual, and it just adds some nice saturation to your sounds from a return channel so you can control it more. And it sounds like this. Cool. So you can see there, you can add some very nice textures and room sounds to your sounds very quickly without having to do any like setup. So it just keeps you in the workflow, keeps you going. So yeah, that pretty much demos everything at this point. The only thing I haven't shown you is what's on the master channel. Now this is an analyzer rack that I've built. This isn't designed to be like a mastering chain. It's not a mastering chain. It's not going to change the sound in any way. Instead, what this lets you do is find problems in your mixing. And another thing it lets you do is it lets you reference other tracks. So you can drag a track into an audio channel. You can quickly break down the bands on this to the stereo fields, the mono fields, the lows, the highs, and stuff like that. I'll do a quick demo now. So right now I'm just listening to 50 hertz and below, so I'm just hearing the kick and the sub. And you can hear that sub's really fucking loud. It needs to be turned down. As I move up the bands, you can hear different things. Kick sounding nice. And you can also listen to just the mono fields and just the stereo fields as well. So turn this one on, I'll hear just mono, which is a great way to mix in, by the way. If you have a good sounding mix in mono, it'll sound great in stereo. And now stereo only. So I can hear that my hi-hats don't have a lot of stereo in them, which probably should have some stereo. At the end here, I have a spectrum analyzer, and this is just so you have a visual representation of what's going on. And if you use like a reference track, you can compare the levels of the sub. So I'd gain match them first, obviously, then I would compare the levels of the sub. You'd be like, oh, this track is way subbier, or not as subby. Maybe yours is too subby and too powerful. Maybe you could turn it down and balance the mix a bit more. So that completes the complete demo. Thank you for sitting through the whole thing. So hopefully I've demonstrated all the tools that are in it, and I've shown you some of the cool effects and cool sounds that it can make. And really, this is designed to save you a shitload of time and keep you in flow. But not only that, it's also going to help you build your own signature sound, because if you use this template and put your own sounds in it and build a combination of things that you really like, and you save it, and you load it up every time you sit down to write music, you're going to write music that's more and more like you, which really goes against what templates are generally designed to do, where you might go like a tech house template and you get given all the sounds and structures and samples from a tech house track. But then you end up just making a tech house track that sounds like anything else. And labels aren't going to want that. They're going to want something unique and special, something authentic to you. It's not only going to help improve your workflow, it's not only going to keep you in flow state, it's not only going to help eliminate decision fatigue, which is going to make things more fun for you, because you're not going to be scrolling through the library and then go like, oh, what am I going to have for dinner? And then you're going to forget what you were doing. This is going to keep you going, and you'll be able to write tracks in under an hour doing this. I swear. If you don't know this, you can actually write tracks in under an hour, like fully done. Not mixed, not mastered, but yeah, you'll be written to the point where you'd be like, okay, cool, there's a demo here. So now you could just go and recreate everything I've just shown you and make your own template out of it. Or you can actually buy this template right now. And if you do buy it, you get a 30-day money back guarantee. So you might buy it, you'd be like, this isn't for me. I'll give you a full refund, no problem. And also, if you become a buyer today, you'll get all lifetime updates. So any features we add to this, any bugs we fix, any patches we bring out, you'll get emailed updates instantly, and you can just download it and go straight into it. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope you buy it and hope you find it useful. Okay, cheers, see ya.